Donald Trump was in Las Vegas over the weekend, a scorching hot rally, very, very hot temperatures, and the teleprompter apparently malfunctioned in the middle of his speech, and so he had to go off script. And so he launched into a story about a meeting he had with a South Carolina boat producer, and he was criticizing green boats, hybrid non-fossil fuel using boats, battery powered boats, and he goes into quite the off the cuff rant here. Here's Donald Trump out in the sun in Las Vegas.
So I said, let me ask you a question. And he said, nobody ever asked this question. And it must be because of MIT, my relationship to MIT. Very smart. He goes, I say, what would happen if the boat sank from its weight and you're in the boat and you have this tremendously powerful battery and the battery's now underwater and there's a shark that's approximately 10 yards over there. By the way, a lot of shark attacks lately. Do you notice that? A lot of shark. I watched some guys justifying it today. Well, they weren't really that angry. They bit off the young lady's leg because of the fact that they were not hungry, but they misunderstood who she was. These people are crazy. He said there's no problem with sharks. They just didn't really understand a young woman swimming now really got decimated, and other people too. A lot of shark attacks. So I said, so there's a shark 10 yards away from the boat, 10 yards, or here. Do I get electrocuted? If the boat is sinking, water goes over the battery, the boat is sinking. Do I stay on top of the boat and get electrocuted? Or do I jump over by the shark and not get electrocuted? Because I will tell you, he didn't know the answer. He said, nobody's ever asked me that question. I said, I think it's a good question. I think there's a lot of electric current coming through that water. But you know what I'd do if there was a shark or you get electrocuted? I'll take electrocution every single time. I'm not getting near the shark. So we're going to...
Woohoo! You notice under Joe Biden, shark attacks have increased under the failing Democrats, under the failing Democrat policies.
They're coming from the Arctic Circle. Yeah. They're coming from the north. They're coming from the south. We have to have a moratorium on sharks. No, until we find out what the hell is going on.
What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on?
And the battery's now underwater.
Okay,
and
this
there's
part.
A shark that's approximately 10 yards over there. By the way, a lot of shark attacks lately. Do you notice that? A lot of shark. I watched some guys justifying it today. Well, they weren't really that angry. They bit off the young lady's leg because of the fact that they were not hungry, but they misunderstood who she was. These people are crazy.
Okay, yeah, they're crazy. Okay, so like minds really do think alike. What made this story stand out to me, aside from his improv skills, right, his skills for keeping the crowd entertained while they figure out how to fix the prompter, it reminded me of a time, I guess I was a teenager, and we were taking this boat off the coast of Florida because my grandparents lived there. It was like a snorkeling trip out in the middle of the ocean where they take you miles out in the ocean. So there's no land, nothing around. We're going to see some reef, coral reef, whatever the fuck it was. And, they give everybody these underwater cameras so you could take pictures, and they put pictures on the boats of what to expect when you get out there. And I see these pictures of, very nice reef with a pretty fish. But then every few pictures, there are these giant 6-foot barracudas that, apparently swim right past you. And so I was thinking this. I didn't want to ask it because I didn't want to sound like a big pussy. But thankfully, one of the other people raised their hand. They asked the tour guide, excuse me, how do we know we're not going to get attacked by a barracuda? Because, those are meat eaters. They'll come at you and they're big. He says, well, a barracuda will only attack you if it thinks you're a fish. That's reassuring. How? How do I know whether or not I look like a fish to a barracuda? How do I know there's not going to be some stupid barracuda swimming by who looks at me and thinks, oh, there's a nice big fat fucking fish? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you know?
You're pretty pasty too.
Exactly. I was even pastier back then. And so how do I know whether or not I look like a fish to a barracuda? What the guy's basically telling me is, if you get your arm bitten off by a barracuda, don't take it personally. He didn't mean anything by it.
They can't really take your arm off. They're going to take like a chunk of meat out of you, really.
They can do some damage. A barracuda? You don't think a barracuda
Sure.
can take an arm? Don't forget, I was like 16. I was like a grown man. Like, I was
small.
like a skinny kid.
I don't think they could take the arm off. But, they would take a big chunk of meat out of you.
they could take a big chunk of meat out of you. Now you can be bleeding out in the middle of the ocean, which is when the sharks come, right?
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah,
that's
so
true.
fuck that. Fuck that. Yeah. But I like how Trump made that same observation. Yeah, they're trying to justify it by saying, oh, he wasn't really hungry. He didn't know who you were, so he bit your leg off. Who he was talking about, I don't know. Did he have a specific woman in mind who had her leg bitten off by a shark?
Well, this is what they always say, that they won't attack you unless they mistake you for a fish. So when I was in Costa Rica, they say America is the land of the free, but pretty much every place else I've ever been is much freer, and that's partly because they're not as litigious.
Right.
That really puts a damper on things when everyone's afraid of getting sued for $1 million.
Right,
Costa Rica, I went to the rodeo in Costa Rica. People keep jumping in with the bull, and at first I thought they were trying to save somebody or help the matador. And then after a while, I realized, no, this is just the local custom. If you feel like jumping in the ring with the bull, you can. So every time the bull comes out, like 20 guys would jump in and taunt the bull. And yeah, a couple of them would get jacked by the bull. They get fucked up by the bull. So, okay, this is a country without lawsuits.
Right.
There's no way you could do this in America. Absolutely no way. But they were running tours. I went out scuba diving, and they were like, yeah, the other tour we run is feeding the bull sharks. I said, what? They say, yeah, feeding the bull sharks. I said, aren't they called bull sharks because they attack unpredictably? Oh, they get a bad reputation that way. Listen. This was like within the last year. A woman was just ripped apart in 3 feet of water in Australia by 3 bull sharks. She wasn't doing anything. She's minding her own business. 3 bull sharks just came in and literally tore her apart, killed her on the spot. So yeah, feeding bull sharks. I mean, I guess if they get used to the humans and understand that they're not food, but you never know, man. It's a wild animal.
Yeah, how do you know? There's no way of knowing. And you're on their home turf. Now,
yeah, exactly. 2 words for you, Siegfried and Roy.
Yeah. And that's why we should all be very skeptical of the Green New Deal.
He said there's no
you don't want to be in a
Just didn't
situation
really
where you're having to
understand
choose between
a young
electrocution
woman swimming
and
now
getting
really
mauled
got
by a shark.
decimated, and other people too. A lot of shark attacks. So I said,
And also you have those
so
land
there's a shark
sharks.
10 yards
That's
away
right.
from the boat.
They'll come right to your
10
door.
yards. Or here, do I get electrocuted? If the boat is sinking, water goes over the battery, the boat is sinking. Do I stay on top of the boat and get electrocuted? Or do I jump over by the shark and not get electrocuted? Because I will tell you, he didn't know the answer. He said, nobody's ever asked me that question.
I love the blank stare that the audience gives him a lot. Like, yeah, he gets the applause at the end because they know they're supposed to, but he gets a lot of just blank stares. Like, Trump is really the human embodiment of Atlantic City. Like, Atlantic City is always a lot nicer and more fun in your mind than it is when you get there. I was like, oh, this will be fun, the buffets and the slots and the beach. And then you get there like, this is kind of just fucking boring and weird, and I can't wait to go home. That's the way a lot of people feel at the Trump rallies, I feel like. I mean, I don't know. Did you sense that? Did he have them in the palm of his hand, or were they just kind of looking at him, giving him the MAGA cat stare, shall we say? You know how there's the liberal cat stare? There's also the MAGA cat stare. I mean, that's it. Look at those. These people are like, what the fuck is he talking about? This woman's got her head down, over the left shoulder. Yeah.
Well, his teleprompter didn't break in the Bronx.
Right.
So his speech was more cohesive. You saw my footage. I mean, what you saw was what it was. People were pretty into it. I think having him in the Bronx was a novelty. That was probably part of it.
That's true.
It's very rare if you're MAGA that you get the opportunity to let your freak flag fly like that, right. In the company of your fellow MAGAs. So they were pretty juiced about it, and he didn't really go on anything that was that aimless. I told you a lot of the speech was about New York. A lot of it was about his career in construction. It was much more New York centric and directed for that particular audience than I would have expected. But yeah, it was typical Trump, just braggadocio. And they couldn't figure out how to make cars go. And then I said, well, how about if you make a wheel? And then cars were able to go. There were no cars until I told them. I said, because they were making them square. they were making square wheel. I said, why didn't you make them round? Make them round.
Yeah, exactly.
It was fucking. It was 2 hours of that.
Basically.
Trump saves the universe. But they were eating it up. They were all about it.
Please clap.